So, a few days ago, there has been a rumor that has come out that Bloodborne is going to get a remake as well as a sequel. And Bloodborne is in my top 3 favorite games of all time. My channel name is even in reference to Bloodborne. So, this was some interesting news. The idea of a Bloodborne remaster or remake, whichever it turns out to be, I think is a great idea. A lot of people have not gotten to play that game because it's only existed on PlayStation. PC and Xbox players have not got the chance to try it.
Please stop this madness.
So I think that's great. The idea of a Bloodborne sequel has also been around for a very long time. Everyone who's played it has kind of mentioned it or wanted it at one point or another because people just couldn't get enough of Bloodborne. They loved being in the streets of Yharnam and dealing with the crazy Lovecraftian things that game brought. And of course, the stellar gameplay and all that soulsborne goodness. And even though Bloodborne is in my top 3 favorite games of all time, I've always been a little scared of the concept of them making a sequel. And there is a part of me that really feels like as much as I would love to have a Bloodborne sequel, and I would play it to death, I really feel like there shouldn't be a Bloodborne 2, unless there's certain conditions that are met, and I'll get to those later. But first, why not a Bloodborne 2, right? Amazing game, amazing story, amazing atmosphere, amazing everything. Low-key 10 out of 10 game. Well, first of all, the story of Bloodborne is kind of over. The majority of things in that game have been wrapped up. The only loose ends are things that are, well, probably supposed to be loose ends. Things that are left up to interpretation.
The world may never know.
And I'm probably not the person that has the deepest understanding of the story, but at least to me, it seems that way. I feel like if you try to dip back into Yharnam and the beasthood born of blood, you're kind of gonna end up stretching the plot a little bit too thin. And as much as I hate endings, I am an advocate for ending things when they need to end, so you don't stretch it too thin and come out with a new series or new thing that doesn't live up to its predecessor. And of course, the team at FromSoft and Miyazaki are very creative individuals, so there probably is some way that they could come up with something. But even then, I wonder if it would still be just trying to extend something that really didn't need it. And it could almost run the risk of becoming a parody of itself, where it's trying to double down on what was already in the original game and scratch at every nook and cranny just to fill out an entire game's worth of story and gameplay. It could honestly lose its spirit and lose what made the original so good. And if the rumors are true and Bluepoint Studios are going to be the ones who are making the game, that raises even more eyebrows and makes me even more worried for it. Bluepoint Studios are great. The Demon's Souls remaster looks amazing. I haven't played it yet because I don't have a PS5, but it looks amazing, and people say it's pretty good too. So that's not a knock on them. I don't think that they make bad games or that they are incapable of making something good. But the Souls games and Bloodborne specifically are very unique and are very much a product of FromSoft and Miyazaki's design. And this is of course only if the rumors are true, but we don't know the capacity to which FromSoft and Bluepoint would be working together on this project. And I think that we can assume that they would be working very closely together, but you never know. Stranger and worse things have happened. So while Bluepoint was great at taking Demon's Souls and slapping a new coat of paint on it, how great would they be at creating a new game off an IP, especially one as unique as something from the Souls games? And maybe they'd be great, I don't know. It's just something that kind of makes me worried. And if they are doing it, then I wish them the best and hope that they can produce something amazing. Because if it is, I'll be right there playing it. But we might end up in a Dark Souls 2 situation. Yeah, that game's not bad, but it's definitely the black sheep of the trilogy. And I really don't want that for Bloodborne. And then the second thing that kind of makes me a little bit wary of a Bloodborne 2 is that I feel like Bloodborne worked very well because it was kind of a game in isolation. Obviously, it still had its roots in the Souls formula, but it very much was a departure both narratively and gameplay-wise from those games. Nothing really plays or feels like Bloodborne. Even Sekiro doesn't really feel the same. So in that way, Bloodborne kind of carved out its own unique space, not only within the Souls franchise, but within the gaming landscape as a whole. And that goes for the narrative as well. As everyone and their mother knows, Bloodborne is a Lovecraftian game. And because of that, it very much feels like a one-off book that you picked off of some shelf somewhere and that just turned out to be amazing. It's this wild story of some crazy event brought on by beings unknown that went down in this even crazier town. And our protagonist has to sort through the cosmic horror and the mystery just to survive the event in the story. And for me, that event and that story is over. It's been told. And trying to tell another story in that same environment, to me, it would take away that unique one-off supernatural nature that Bloodborne was. And that's even mechanically and gameplay-wise. Like I said before, nothing plays like Bloodborne. It's just this special one-off game. And I wonder if both the original and the sequel would lose something by trying to catch lightning in a bottle again. To me, as much as I love Bloodborne, it doesn't seem like it was ever designed to have a sequel. And hey, maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. I'm not Miyazaki and I'm not at FromSoft. Like, I don't know. But that's the vibe I got, is that here is this one night, one time crazy thing that went down. Experience it. And then that's it. But of course, Bloodborne 2 came out and it was amazing. I'd be first in line to buy that game and I played for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours.
2 hours later.
Of course, I would love for Bloodborne 2 to exist, but I just wonder, should it? Because to me, it seems like this game would only exist because fans are forcing it to. And in that way, it might kind of end up being creatively bankrupt, if that makes sense. There are plenty of things that fans have forced into existence that they later regret. And I wonder if Bloodborne 2 might be one of those things. But I guess if these rumors are true, we'll just have to see. Now, I do kind of think that there is a way to make a good Bloodborne 2. I think that if there were to be any kind of continuation of this series, that the best way to do it would be as an anthology series. Keep the same Lovecraftian themes with the Great Ones and all the other supernatural nonsense, but set it in a different place with different characters and an entirely different issue. Like, I don't know, how are the Great Ones making people's lives horrible in a snowy mountain town? And what problems would arise from that? And what crazy gameplay mechanics would you have to make to suit that environment and that problem that's going on? It's like how I mentioned before that Bloodborne seemed like this crazy one-off book you found on some random shelf. This new book or game would have the same theme, same author, but be an entirely different story and experience. And in that way, you could fix the problems that I personally see arising when trying to create a Bloodborne sequel. Bloodborne's story is over, so you wouldn't have to worry about trying to scrape together enough material to stretch that out, because it'd be something completely different. Of course, you can make reference to the fact that Yharnam exists, as these games would basically share a universe, but you and the developers would have a whole new environment and world to play in. Insight could still be an important factor, but maybe it has nothing to do with blood at all. Like, maybe the presence of a Great One is emitting some frequency that's brainwashing the people in a nearby town, or causing some kind of distortion that's making people go missing, and you don't know why. And now, instead of having blood be the main focus, maybe sound is the game mechanic and the narrative focus. I don't know. I'm sure FromSoft is way more creative than me, especially in this genre. I'm sure they could come up with something a lot better than that. But you get my point. New game, Soulsborne, coming to you this holiday season.
What?
Yeah, that sounds terrible. But yeah, and in that way, we would get a new, unique game that would have its own narrative focus and exist outside of Bloodborne. And we could keep getting more of these kinds of games in the future, since it would be an anthology series, and they wouldn't have to connect to each other. So that means that each new game would be free to be as unique and wild as it wanted. I think that would be super cool. Of course, the only obvious problem is if the story's different, if it's not Yarnum, if we're not talking about blood, if the gameplay is different, then is it really Bloodborne? And would it fulfill that need that so many people have? Or would we still have people just asking for that Bloodborne sequel? And I don't know, maybe an anthology series isn't the right way to go. Maybe there is a direct sequel to Bloodborne that can be made that I just can't see because I'm not FromSoft and I don't have that mind. Either way, if there is a Bloodborne sequel on the way, I just hope it's amazing, because you know your boy's gonna be hitting that fashion souls. But anyway, let me know what you think. Do you think a Bloodborne sequel is a good idea? Do you just want it regardless? Do you think an anthology series would be cool? Or what do you even think about Bluepoint possibly being the ones to do it? Let's talk down in the comments. If you liked what you heard or anything like that, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you do, I'll catch you on the next one.